Welcome, everybody, to our webinar today. We are really excited to be hosting a super exciting talk on agentic data engineering on Snowflake. Before we get into really the heart of the conversation here, we'll do some quick introductions. Just by way of introduction on my end, I am Sean Knapp. I'm the founder and CEO of Ascend.io. I'm a recovery CTO and data engineer, and I love the data world, but I'm far more excited to be joined by Tessa Juengst, who is our resident expert on all things data. She is our solution architect, works with a ton of our customers, implementing, some of the really the most advanced and exciting data pipelines from healthcare to retail to media, kind of all the various things Tessa has done. Really, really exciting work with our customers and across the industry. So, Tessa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, it's great to be here. I'm excited to talk about what we've been doing.
Awesome. And so this is a slightly different webinar than what we've done in some of the past. Historically, and we have a bunch of other webinars and labs that we love to host. And I invite all of you to join those too, where we do really fun conversations with various customers. We have hands-on labs like we did just last week on agentic data engineering, and we have another one in a couple of weeks. But today's is actually a kind of a unique and fun one, as today we're actually talking about our own internal use of Ascend. And this is kind of a fun one. Maybe it's like, I'd say at least a little embarrassing in the sense of like the cobbler's kids have no shoes, from a sense of what we were doing before and what we're doing now. As you know, we're really big on dog fooding, but we're also, a pretty lean startup, and we tend to devote most of our cycles to working with customers. And so I'm really excited to have Tessa walk us through just a lot of our journey and how we've upgraded and updated a lot of our own internal systems, and in our move to Snowflake, the things that we've accomplished and achieved here. And so without further ado, let's dive into a little bit of that conversation. And I really would just wanted to start off with Tessa. Just tell us a bit about the current setup at Ascend, and where we stand today, and really what some of the goals were of this migration.
Yeah. So all of our billing pipelines, all of our customer usage pipelines, those were all in our Gen 1 on Spark. So everything has been running there smoothly. It just kind of plots along, no real issues. I don't think I remember the last time I've had to do any maintenance there. But it's kind of like an old truck. It just keeps running. And it might have 350,000 miles on it. It's still on the road. Air conditioner doesn't work, but you kind of have to roll down the window to get your air conditioning going. But yeah, it works. No bells and whistles, no backup camera, you know, but it's going.
I definitely had that pickup truck growing up in high school, and it served me well. But I think there is that time to move on, sadly.
Yeah, I mean there's so much technology out there, right? Like, you sort of want the screen in your car that, gives you the GPS. So you want some observability. You want to be able to see what's around you when you're backing up. I also had my first pickup truck. It was a little Mazda, like 86 Mazda, and I ran over a fence. So yeah, 16 years old.
There's a story that we're gonna have to unpack later.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to dive into that. Well, let's hop in a little bit more. And one of the things I wanted to do just before we get into the real big deep details, we're gonna walk folks through what our migration looked like. We're gonna actually have you screen share and walk us through your live workspace and our deployments inside of our own internal deployment of the platform, which is super exciting to see. But before we did that, I did want to just walk us through a little bit, just a quick high level of, what are we seeing as far as the current state of data teams, and even more so AI adoption, which we'll get to in a second. And the reason why I'd like to just walk folks through this is, if nothing else, I want to give everybody who's attending the webinar and watching the recording later, I want to give you all a ton of ammunition on why you need more resources, why you need increased investment in your teams and your capacity, and also hopefully give you some relief that you're not alone in what we observe in our annual survey, which is vast majority, overwhelming majority of data teams are overloaded. We've seen for multiple years in a row now, 1 out of 20 teams has spare capacity, or put another way, 95% of data teams are at or over their capacity, with only that small fraction having room for taking on new projects. And I think this is really hard, especially in the era of AI, as we're seeing increased demand on teams to do even more and be that backbone and that enabler of innovation with AI, yet data teams are still swamped. And so it's no surprise that we tend to also see the number one priority of teams is productivity. And this was actually a really interesting thing we found this year. For the last few years, productivity was not the number one priority. It has surged massively in the last 12 months as the number one priority as teams are really prioritizing and investing in their overall volume and velocity. And that really takes us to one of the third findings that I think is really important, which is when we asked teams, where are you investing? And in pursuit of this productivity, automation was the number one thing. 85% of teams indicated they were investing in automation as the primary way of improving productivity. So I think this is a pretty important takeaway. And I think one of the really big reasons why is, when we look at a lot of, let's call them our peers in adjacent spaces here, what we see software teams, marketing teams, support teams, sales teams, HR teams, everybody's kind of running around doing these victory laps of like, they see AI is like solving all these incredible problems for us. And one of the challenges with that is it does feel like the data teams are kind of behind. And I don't know about the rest of the attendees, but we see this a ton with our customers when we interact with them, which is there's a lot of consternation around everybody's doing these victory laps. My CEO is getting told by all these other orgs that they're doing amazing, yet, gosh, like we can't even get some of the basics really in place yet. And like, what's going on? And as we've spent a lot of time with data teams, I think one of the fundamental challenges is data engineering teams tend to be behind because we have to deal with this wildly complex space. And I know specifically, right now in this current era, we are starting to see some great consolidation and compaction in the space, which makes life easier for teams, but it's still not enough. And what we're seeing is all of this time and energy being invested in integrating as opposed to innovating really is slowing our teams down. And so we always ask this question of, where's your team actually spending their time? Are they spending their time just cobbling together all these various technologies, or are they spending their time building actual data pipelines and putting those into production? And that's really where we wanted to tackle this on this third generation of our platform, which Tessa's going to walk you all through in a second, which is how do we get a much more innovative, fast moving platform where we can pull people out of the muck of data engineering, get them out of that toil and into a proper data engineering experience. And so when we think about it, what we think about is this DataOps lifecycle. And how do we get people into this really seamless, fluid motion between the developer side and the deployment side when you're building things and deploying things, and how quickly we can get people into this loop, which, I don't know, Tessa, in the last week, how many times have you deployed and pushed code out to production?
Oh, at least a dozen times, right? Like
Which is insane.
we're always adding. We're always adding
Yeah.
to add
And that's one of
in no time at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like one of the really fun parts of this is, we want like an amazing and enabling platform is the one that enables you to go faster, but safely. And that's where a lot of these data ops best practices come into play. And it's so key and critical when we also factor in AI, as AI can help us go even faster and it can offload a lot of this toil for us. But we need the safeguards in place where you can't let AI just go like fully unsupervised and like full rogue in your production environment. And so we need certain boundaries where we can be safe, but we still get a lot of the benefits from it, which I know you're going to walk us through quite a bit of. But with that sort of philosophical background behind how we think about a lot of this stuff here, let's get into more details. Let's get into some of the specifics around our architecture. And Tessa, start to walk on the group here. What do we do today with our existing architecture? Where are we reading data from? What are we doing with it? Where are we writing it to? And walk us through this a little bit.
Yeah. So our current architecture, as you can imagine, we have a platform. We're reading in a lot of logs. So all of the billing information, user analytics, everything's going to be coming from logs for us. So that's, pub sub into BigQuery. We're dumping logs into S3, into GCS, using Loki. We're pulling all of that information in, and they are just straight text, right? It's all JSON messages. Like it's real basic, real simple data set.
We do.
And not always easy to parse, but it's real direct. We also added in some Kafka for our Gen 3 billing and user information. So the previous architecture that we had going was through Gen 1 using Spark. And then we would do our processing using, the open source Spark, where we're getting our billing, our platform usage and billing information, our user analytics, a lot of transformations, right? A lot of parsing, a lot of calculations. And we'll definitely show you what those transforms look like. And then for the targets, we're loading data into BigQuery for analytics. MySQL we're using for our end users. That's where your observability data is stored. So when you go into the Observe tab, you're seeing all of those graphs that's coming from the process data. So that's showing up there in MySQL. And then we use Looker internally, where we're hooking up to BigQuery, and we're able to analyze and see usage, do billing, all of that fun stuff. We've additionally added Postgres for the backend observability for the customers now in Gen 3, and then our Stripe processing, which is our automatic billing solution there.
Awesome. It's always great. We had a similar conversation with Dustin from Studio C, where it's funny how oftentimes when you do these kinds of migrations, there's been, let's call it a backlog of things where you're like, oh, I really want to do that too. And you're like, now that I see the shiny new thing that's so fast and efficient, man, that seems so painful to have to implement in the old thing. I'm just going to wait. And the migrations kind of always become a migration plus plus because you implement all the shiny new stuff in flight.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was really easy. Once we had the migration completed, it was a no-brainer. You're going to add it to the new system really quickly, really easily, and move on.
Yeah. And so let's dive in a little bit more now. We'll go click in a little bit deeper into the solution that we've implemented. I should say that Tessa has implemented, and we'll walk through some of the features, and then we'll actually get into even more of the details and start to walk through some of the platform itself, and you guys can all see what this looks like live. But so first, just walk us through, why Snowflake? The SM platform works on BigQuery, it works on DuckDB, it works on Databricks. Like, why do we do Snowflake? And then walk us through the features on the SM side that you're so excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Snowflake, the first thing is the ability to have the cluster auto scaling. And what that means is that I can have my warehouse set at an extra small warehouse that actually will scale for me automatically. So when I'm running, the flows, and once it's backfilled, I really can run these on very small warehouses since it's processing only new data. But what happens if, something kind of got hung up, or, we have an unexpected amount of data come through? Then my extra small warehouse is going to have a hard time. And
Mhm.
get that call I don't want to be paged in the middle of the night saying that, my flows are failing or, that they took 4 hours to complete.
Yep.
So auto scaling was a huge determining factor for Snowflake. That ability, saves us money, obviously, and also saves us time um,
Mhm.
on the engineering side. The other thing, and this I think is even more my favorite part. Uh, I know Sean has heard me in many meetings talk about how much I love the variant data type.
And so we'll go at like two extreme lengths to tell you how amazing this is, which we're sold. We are so sold. I think we're now spoiled as we look at other implementations and iceberg and stuff like that. Where yes, you've converted us. Do tell.
Yes. So it might sound like, okay, well, it's just a data type. It can't be really that great. When the majority of your source is JSON and you have to parse that, when you're working with other warehouses, that can be a little difficult. Um, because some warehouses require you to have like specific schemas for this data, or you're constantly like converting the data back to the JSON to parse it out correctly.
Mhm.
With Snowflake, like each of my rows, the JSON doesn't have to match, which is really the intended use of sending messages in JSON so that I can add a new column. I don't have to worry about it, like it's not a big deal. So the ability for you to instantly and easily parse this data, store it as that variant. Snowflake also has a lot of optimizations around it that make it really fast. So definitely the easiest implementation that I've done with dealing with this type of data itself. And then like price performance, right? So we talked a little bit about that in the cluster auto scaling. I'm able to keep smaller clusters, auto scale them as needed. There is a lot of great observability on the billing side for Snowflake as well. So that was another plus for using Snowflake.
Mhm.
And when we talked about like, what do we want to use? What do we want to do instead of PySpark? Do we want to keep using Spark? What do we want to do there? Simplifying the code and making it, just SQL means that it's a lot easier to maintain. So as
Mhm.
we get, new people coming on and maybe they're more of the data analytic realm, maintaining a pipeline like this is so simple. I mean, the majority of people in the data field know SQL.
Yep.
So definitely makes it easier to maintain.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. Even I can come in and be effective, which is a good because I need a low bar. When I think, even going back to what you were saying a bit on the price performance too, we found some really neat stuff, right? Which is, for example, Snowflake has these really amazing Gen 2 warehouses. And we found like, right, when crunching through a bunch of data, Gen 2 was more performant. Like, even though it's, I think, about like a 30% increase in the unit cost, it was wildly more performant than the Gen 1. But we found like, I think it was for ingest, Gen 1 was still just as performant when you're just trying to ingest data. And so we even architected some of our flows around ingest versus transform so we could use Gen 1 for ingest and optimize around that and then transform, right? Am I getting that right?
Yep, absolutely. So we're able to use different warehouses, different generations of warehouses for each flow, which lets you really dial down that performance and identify like what is going to perform better in what type of warehouse. So definitely that was helpful. We did a lot of different variations as well to
Mhm.
see, best performance on Snowflake, what's going to be most cost effective. And right now, I mean, we've gotten our pipeline down to, we have billions and billions. I think it's like 80 billion records. It's massive. And it's about $12 a day to run.
Mhm.
So the cost performance there, I mean, has really impacted our decision on where we want to run our main.
Yeah. It's funny as you mentioned that I'm watching some of the questions come in. Which, by the way, if y'all have questions, please start sending them in, and we'll save most to the end. But literally one of the questions was, which is a great question, why should Snowflake teams lean towards using Ascend on top of their warehouse? And I think Tessa just had a really great answer around price and performance and how Ascend can optimize a lot. But we'll get into even more of the details too, rather than me just giving you my sales pitch on it. You'll see a lot of the benefits as well. But I thought, part of this that you highlighted, just how fast the pipelines can run. And, one of the features that you have over here on the smart components works so beautifully well with these, being able to pick different kinds of Snowflake warehouses and the auto scaling capabilities. So walk us through a little bit more of some of the features on the Ascend side that I know you use so extensively. And then we'll go from there into actually turning the controls over to you, and you can start to walk us through all of this.
Awesome. Yeah. So the data engineering copilot, Otto, Otto did the PySpark to Snowflake SQL. I would say it was about 95% of the code translation, which is really amazing. And obviously, like you talked about before, you still have to have somebody that kind of monitors and sees if this is actually correct, because different engines are going to handle like decimals differently. So you might not
Mhm.
exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, that was a big thing with using Auto. DataOps agents, being able to create agents that sort of do some of the grunt work for you. And I'll show you what I'm talking about there in the demo. But just having the agents that handle and maybe look at some errors before they page you and tell you, what happened or what might have happened, so that you can pinpoint it, at 3 a.m., God forbid. And when you're half awake, you can sort of have a jump start on any real issues. Data applications, so the templates, we use those really heavily when we were doing our testing for determining, how we should implement either the smart components, which are like partitioned or incremental, and then the materialization strategies, which might be a view, may not be a view. We really leaned heavily on these templates and were able to create so many variations and then track what that cost is going to be when we run it in production, so that we can make some good decisions on what runs best on Snowflake and what runs best for our data set and our transformations. Versioning and Git controls. I really love this because I don't know about you, but 6 months from now, I will have no idea what on earth I did in the code. And if I don't have a commit that sounds like, oh, this is what I did. Yeah, in my mind at the time, I'll think, oh yeah, it's obvious why I'm making this change. But yeah, no, I fool myself every time. I don't know why I did the change. I don't know what the intention was in 6 months from now. And then obviously knowing who did it. Was it me, or did you in there?
I've been known to do it, definitely sneaking into the code base when nobody's watching. Well, and I think this is kind of related to, I'm going to feather in a few answers to some of the questions I see coming in, but I'm going to leave them posted in here because we'll come back to them as well. But, one of the questions was around what AI agent features, would you get access to with Ascend and Snowflake? And I think this is one of the key parts is, hey, there's like the really big things, like you get the copilot, you can write your own agents that triage the errors. Like we'll show you that kind of like the email, or there's more like full agentic with MCP server agents. But there's also like really these just developer delight features where, as you described, going back to the code, oftentimes generally when I'm going into the code base, it's really at like not super healthy hours of the night where you're like, oh yeah, I want to go do something really fast while I'm thinking about it. And then, you're not writing very good commit messages. You're not paying super great attention. And so there's like these little background agents that do really nice things for you. Like, hey, when you're saving files, even before you actually go do a full commit or create a pull request, they're actually writing human readable summaries for you of what you actually did. And when you do want to create a pull request and merge things in, they can take all of that human readable stuff and all the diffs of the code and give you a proper Git pull request sort of summary, just the things that like work for you in the background and in the foreground that just make it more delightful. So, when you wake up the next morning and it's 9 a.m. and you're like, wait, what was going on last night? You can like scroll through and you can read, great human readable summaries of the kinds of work that was being done before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's incredibly helpful because a lot of times, when you're really deep in the work itself,
Hmm.
it's clear to you what you're doing and why that you don't really feel like it needs to be articulated.
Hmm.
So that's where you sort of get yourself in trouble because you're like, well, yeah, it's obviously doing this. Well, that's because you've
Yep.
been and you came up with it, right?
Yep.
So yeah,
Well, yeah, totally. Well, so let's do this because I know, I want to drop into the product so you can show people, a lot of this stuff, just super hands on, and we'll try and save some more time for questions at the tail end here. I know we got about 18 minutes left to go, and I'll keep monitoring the questions for folks. Everybody, keep sending your questions in, and we'll try and not just answer you with words, but we'll actually show you as well as best we can, so we can get you some really great insights as well. And so with that, let's head over to some demo time. And Tessa, I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's dive in.
perfect. Okay. All right. So I think the last two things on our list was observability and then isolated development spaces. So observability. This is our prod deployment right now running. As you can see, there's definitely a lot of bells and whistles that will make your life a lot easier. At least it makes my life easier. I can see what's actually running across all of the flows. I can see that really easily. Active runs here. I can see that my smart components are actually working. So here I'm seeing that 0.323% of my partitions are being reprocessed. That's amazing.
That goes back to like the cost savings and like why you would use Ascend as this smart component thing that really reduces how much you're actually probably to process every time.
Exactly. And just like with our other generations, like that is the core of Ascend. Like how do I process data without the additional cost of reprocessing? How do I manage that? Recent runs, I can see, that there were some errors. I can see that, there were some automations that didn't actually trigger. I could see that Oliver was burning the midnight oil and push some changes here. Like that's great observability. And then isolated development spaces. So this is my workspace. And really I want to spend my time here because I feel like that's where all of the work is. Like this is where you're developing. Oh, there we go. We also have auto snooze. So if you're like me,
Also saving you money.
yeah, I'm definitely saving you money because if you're like me, you're gonna walk away and be burning it. So yeah. So in here, I know we talked a little bit about the data engineering copilot, auto, and I'm sure that if you've been to a webinar, you have seen in detail our auto assistant, where I can just type in whatever I want. Can you, fix my code? Can you convert my code, which is what we really relied on heavily? Can you do all of these things? But within an actual flow, so this is our transformation flow.
And one pause too, just because I saw another question that's super relevant to where you're in right now, at least partially tied to the data ops side. This is one of the things with workspaces where it's less around the cost savings part, though we'll get to that. And we already highlighted the resource preserving auto snoozing and capabilities like that. But your workspaces, this is one of the beautiful pieces. Like it is a fully isolated, it's your development workspace. Other people aren't going to step on it. We generally have people recommend like, hey, wire that up to a different database. It can share processing resources, but that way you're not corrupting somebody else's data. So it really adheres you to all these like best practices around data ops to maximize your efficiency as a developer.
Oh, absolutely. And you can even see here, like I have my own branch that I'm working off of. Once I finish my development work, I can merge that into our dev deployment and run it there. I don't have to worry about, messing up data anywhere for anybody else. Right now, like everything is writing to my own database. Like you mentioned, Sean, I might be using the same warehouse in Snowflake, but definitely writing to my own database. And I'm keeping my own like stats here. So even in the UI itself, like this is for the runs that I'm doing in my workspace. So I don't
Hmm.
have to worry about, somebody else starting something or running something while I'm doing my work.
Yep. Yeah. Fully isolated, your space really helps maximize your productivity as an engineer.
Yep, exactly. And one of the really cool things about the Copilot part is that I'm really able to sort of use, like these are some of the things that I can put in here for, the config itself. So I'm able to see that really easily just with a command I. And then there's also like some additional, like if I started typing, I can start seeing some prompts show up, which
Hmm.
is really helpful as well.
Yep.
And that's
And
just
walk us through, yeah, and walk us through even too, 'cause since you have one of these up, like some of the Git history stuff, because this is really cool where you can see like everything that's changed in your branch, but you can also see a bunch of the smarts that Autos even helped summarize and understood for you as well, related to this on top of that.
yeah, absolutely. This I did not write. So this is all auto. So I didn't have to write this. I didn't have to summarize. I did some reshapes to daily and removed
Hmm.
a bunch of flows to do cleanup here from 3 months ago. I didn't have to do any of that. And I can select like any of these flows and I can see like what did I do here. So it's really simple to isolate or find like when was the last change, why was it changed, and then the
Hmm.
right through right in the UI here, which I love. I don't need to go to Git. I don't need to figure out the history on a file. It's all right here. I can also see
That's
like,
amazing.
all of my runs, of course, isolated. I can see my fun little errors here. Like there's a lot of work that went into even like the having auto help us with errors. So this was like a timeout. Any error you can actually click on, have auto explain it for you.
Yeah, go ahead and like go ahead and do one of those because I think that's really interesting too for people to be able to see, what can auto do. And I think this is where we see a lot of the power of AIs. Oftentimes, it's not just like this big, crazy, magical thing, which is also like, hey, it's gonna do all the things for you, but it's weaving it into that developer experience in a really powerful, compelling way that just hooks you as things progress as well.
I do have to
And
tell
so,
you that I do click this every time. Like I will click it and then I'll start reading like what it could be. Like
mm,
I do kind of that first approach is throw to auto while that's going. I might just kind of skim through it and see if I can see what the error is. But yeah, I definitely like to cheat a little.
yeah, I'm with you 100%. Well, and so even though it looks like autos maybe on a coffee break, but let's dive into a little bit more. One of the other things that you talked about were data applications, and I think that's one that we've used so extensively because it wildly reduces how much code you have in the system, and it's something that we've seen customer after customer utilize, and it's powerful because one, it simplifies your code base. Two, it makes it easier for agents to continue to participate as you create more implementations of these templates. But like this has been, one of the things that we predicted would be a sleeper feature as part of the platform, and it's really come true. Like people seem to use this really heavily.
Oh yeah, I mean, for us, we use it in two ways, even in this one flow. So this flow itself is a template. So this is a template for it. We used for the main flow a template in order to create multiple flows with different materializations so that we can track and benchmark what the best performant flow is. Over here, you see some templates as well. You can see that 3 of them are used, well, 6 of them are used just in this one flow. And this is really more about being able to, or code reusability, right? So we're able to create some tests to verify that whatever changes that we had implemented whenever we did this code change from PySpark to Snowflake SQL, that we're still getting the same result by pulling in, previous data, validating that it matches. So there's a couple ways that we are definitely using the templates here. And so with these, little summaries that we've created, we're able to throw them in any flow we want, point them to different components, and really reuse them. But our main flow, if you look here, you can see like this is the template itself. It has all of the components here, and they're actually parameterized. So implementing the transform and making changes to it is as simple as a YAML file. You could see
And this
like,
is something we've heard others describe as, configuration as code or metadata driven pipelines. This is really the sort of manifestation of that. It lets you both be the architect of what that template is, but then have really simple implementations.
oh, absolutely. Like this YAML here really dictates like what the materialization type is going to be. Like we found that some tables, we really don't need to materialize them at all. Like this one,
Mhm.
for instance, all activity is just a union of upstream components. Why are we materializing, millions, billions of records? There's no point in it. While other ones, we thought, well, hey, let's do this as a view. We ran it, not great, right?
Mhm.
So we were able to take and create this. The reason why it's called hybrid is because it's a hybrid of all of the different implementations that we tried out. So you may not see all those flows here now because I did that one little cleanup that you saw in the Git log where I got rid of flows that were like, okay, yeah, we're done with that testing. So it's
Mhm.
really simple to create some great benchmarks, to create different variations in the flows, see how they run, see how long they take, where we can improve it, even at
Mhm.
the granularity. So the reshape of these, we've tried, maybe we want it hourly, maybe we don't want to reprocess things. We tested them out first, not only in our workspaces, but we deployed it to a debit deployment and let it run for a while to really validate, hey, is this saving? Is this costing? How can we improve this pipeline? Without using templates, it would have taken so much longer to
Lots of copy and pasting of code.
definitely. I mean, and then even
Yeah.
going in individual components and then, pasting a different thing there and not being able to actually see a nice view of, hey, this is the implementation that we're using.
Yeah. Well, so walk us through a little bit more too, because I'm seeing it in a bunch of the questions, people are asking about optimization processes, the specific features that really help reduce costs and optimize systems. And so a lot of what you're showing here, there's different data transformation types. You have views and you have tables. You have, walk us through what the difference is between like a simple transform and incremental transform. Somebody might be familiar with like with a DBT, and then walk us through what a smart transform is and how is that different from these others? Because like these are really powerful features and are the backbone for why these pipelines can run so efficiently.
Yeah. I mean, with the smart components, that's going to be like your partitions data sets. So in this case, we're reading from upstream. The partitions on the upstream might be, in our case, it's like thousands because it's files, right? So you have a new partition for every file that you're ingesting, which is a great way to ingest data, right? You only want to ingest a file once. You don't want to, be reprocessing files. But once it gets to a transform, it might be okay to have those sort of reshaped into a daily or an hourly partition. which means that, when new data comes in the upstream, if you select to do it hourly, like then every hour you're reprocessing or you're processing that last hour's worth of data that came in.
Hmm.
This is very efficient because now you're not having to use resources in Snowflake to rerun data over and over. So that's really where our smart components come in and help. And it's very similar to our Gen 1 and Gen 2 products.
Hmm. Well, that's sort of like for folks who may be familiar, like, we think of a simple transform as you just reprocess everything every
Yep.
time, which is great. If you have a million records, super easy. If you have, and these are our dev data sets in our prod, I think we have, well, our biggest one had 2.7 million partitions. And I think we have something like 80 to 100 billion records.
Yeah.
And so when you want to start to partition down, because even when you're doing incremental, you don't get the same data integrity checks you would get from, say, a full reprocessing, but you can't afford that. And you don't want to wait for it to finish. And so that's where the smart part fits in, which is, we will fingerprint the code, we'll actually fingerprint the data. And so there's more initial upfront work to make sure that the component is ready for a smart transform. But then it's like wildly efficient as you move incremental data through in ways that's just not possible otherwise. And that's really tied to this like really cool combination of the smart components that we have, plus a bunch of the optimizations in Snowflake that let this combo be really, really efficient, especially as your data volumes get into the hundreds of millions of records and beyond, and will help keep your costs more flat and neutral, even as your data volumes grow.
Oh, absolutely. And with any data set pipeline, I mean, you typically see, these larger numbers. This again is just our workspace. So I think it's like 2 days worth of data.
Mhm.
Oh. That's why you see like two partitions. So you have, millions of rows here, but your output, is 18K. Like
Mhm.
it's
It
not.
really does help optimize.
It does. It helps optimize up front. And then once you kind of get down to some aggregations, maybe that's a
Mhm.
component.
Yeah.
That's right. Because you have a small amount of data when it gets down to that aggregation. Even in
Yeah.
incremental, if you're, doing something where it usually updates hourly and
Mhm.
you have this data set that you just want to do and insert and update to, that works as well.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So I know we're getting close to time. What I'd love to do, show us a little bit of, some of the, you mentioned the custom rules. Show us a couple of the agentic automations that we've put in place here. And then we'll pop it up and if folks have any last questions, we're trying to hit most of them. But if you have any other remaining questions, please send them in and we'll try and hit them as we wrap up as well. But first, let's talk about some of these automations and where these agents can help us, not just on the building side, but on the operating side.
Yes, this I love. When I talked about earlier where, I want Otto to do all of the grunt work before I have to wake up and figure out what's wrong. It's as simple as an automation. I mean, you have a prompt, you have instructions. It tells you, this is what happened. You're able to instruct Otto to look at your Git history and figure out, what change was pushed. You're able to have them do that little star that I clicked on the error. It's going to do that work in the background, and then it's going to email it to Mishan and Ayush. So so we can all be aware of what's happening there. And it's a simple way to handle any of your failures. So we do have
Hmm.
that one. And then I also like this daily summary one where we just have this quick summary that is emailed out to us that says, hey, this many flows processed. This was what your reprocessing looked like. I don't need to go into our beautiful dashboard, even though I love it. I can get that email every morning and it just kind of tells me, like, hey, this is what's going on.
And that's what's really cool too, right? Because it tells you not just like, hey, these things may have errored, which, we'll get other alerts for before the daily summary, but it will also tell you things like, hey, this is actually starting to run slower than it used to. Or, hey, there was some other anomalistic behaviors, or did you know that, Sean pushed code at 2 in the morning and everybody's aware that he went straight YOLO mode on the system. And so like that's the nice part too, is really just getting your daily summary that, we have scheduled to come in the morning.
Yeah.
It's really
So
cool.
long running flows, I can look at that later on today. I don't need to wake up to it, but I can look at it later on today.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, as we wrap up, let me go ahead and grab the share real fast and just kind of, bringing us back front and center to sort of the outcomes. So I think that's what everybody's super curious about at the end of the day. Let's talk about the outcomes here. I mean, it seems like we are able to move dramatically faster. Things are you already highlighted, way cheaper, and we're doing a bunch of the best practices.
Yeah, absolutely. The development cycle is actually really enjoyable. A lot easier to implement brand new flows. Like it says 7 times faster. It's absolutely true. I mean, we were able to implement new pipelines, I don't know, within a week of getting the sources. Like that's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, that's really cool. And as you highlight, like just being that aligned to those best practices, it feels like it's no longer one of those where everybody's like, maybe I'll implement it, but that seems pretty painful. And now it just seems so fast and easy. And I know the old generations felt fast and easy when you get them too, but it really is fun getting to play in this much more modern realm. And I think that's where we want our data teams. We want the teams feeling fearless because they have the safeguards and the right process in place that allows them to iterate very quickly, but still really create super high quality systems they can push to production. So amazing. Thank you, Tessa, for walking us through a lot of that. Hopefully, we've done a good job of answering everybody's questions here. Really appreciate everybody joining us for this. If you do have other questions or you want to connect with our team, we have our QR code here. And of course, if you go back to our website, there's always a million and one ways to get in touch with us there. We'd love to chat with you more, and we'll look forward to seeing you all either our next webinar or our next lab. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate it. Thank you,
Everyone.
Tessa.